Peace, Almighties, and welcome back to another episode of How the Earth Became Civilized. I am your brother, the pragmatic Che Blak. In tonight's episode, we continue to trek the Africans who came out of the Nile Valley into India, the subcontinent of Asia Minor, as well as now Europe. And we will show and prove how these same Africans went into Greece and then into Rome and established the oldest known civilizations of Europe, and what also became known as the chain of Europe, which was ancient Greece. And I know a lot of people, they say, oh, brother Che Blak, you sure you want to go there with saying that Africans went into ancient Greece, especially knowing the history of what the Greeks went on to practice and whatnot? However, as far as the civilization standpoint goes, and as far as the architect and the mathematics and the science that was found in that is accredited to Greece, came way before those people who we know who was pretty much patronizing these bathhouses and whatnot. You heard? So we're talking about the people who laid the foundation so that these people would be able to read, to write, to add, to build, and to exist and be the precursor to the European, what we know today as the white, the Anglo, the Latin European. We know that these were the fathers of their civilization. And so tonight's episode, we will be digging in to see who the father of their civilization was, which was these same Africans. So sit back, relax, hope you enjoy, and we're back again. And tonight's episode is called How the Earth Became Civilized, the Eurasian Invasion. Ancient Greece as a civilization was started around 3500 BCE, and by 2000 BCE, the Cretan civilization on the island of Crete had begun to erect urban complexes similar to that of those in the Indus Valley, as well as the Nile Valley and Hattush. But around the 15th century BCE, following natural disasters, the largely Indo-European population coming out of Turkey invaded Crete. After these invaders becoming the ruling class, ancient Greece entered into what historians label the Greek Dark Ages. Now, historians call these Indo-European invaders the Mycenaeans. But again, these are the same Aryan Caucasians who came from Russia and entered into the European Caucasus steppe. And just like them, the Anatolian Hittites, they labeled the people who established the Cretan civilization, which was the inception of the ancient Greek civilization, the Minoan civilization. The Minoan civilization was started, like I said, around 3500 BCE and began its decline around 1450 BCE and then fully ended around 1100 BCE, which was the beginning of the early stages of the Greek Dark Ages. So when the ancient Minoan civilization, which is the first European civilization ever, when it ended, it was the beginning of the Dark Ages of Greece. And as we know, Greece is the linchpin of civilization to Europe. Now, which is really funny because, like, once again, it's the same story all over again. Like, they know who the Mycenaean people were, and these Mycenaean people, don't get it twisted. Like I said, they're the same Anatolians, the same people they called the Hittites, the same people who ended up being called the Anglos and the Latins, were the same people who are your original Aryan Caucasians who came out of the Ural Mountains, out of there, Russia and the Ukraine, and crossed over the European steppe. These are the same people, and it's crazy because although they know exactly who these Mycenaeans are, when it comes to the Cretans who created the Minoan civilizations, there's this big question mark of who the original aboriginal people of Greece really were. Here we see the Cretan fishermen. Can it be that it was all so simple then? I swear. Look at this brother. He look about as carefree in the world, don't he? Don't he? I swear. For a group of people who historians and scientists claim to not know exactly who they are, they sure left a lot of clues behind. I'm just saying. Here we see the Cretans in Egypt paying tribute. This is found in the tomb of Rekhmare, and this is during the 18th dynasty, during the reign of Menkaure Tahuti Mase, also known as Thutmose III by the Greeks. This was around the 15th century BCE. So clearly these people were connected if they felt the need to pay tribute. They was actually paying tribute, so it was more than just they were neighbors or knew each other, but there was in fact some type of a relationship going on there, and it seemed like Egypt was the authoritative figure, or the parental figure, I should say, because you're not paying tribute for nothing, right? Check. Here we see the ancient Cretan coins. These go back to the 6th century. Now, if you look at this brother right here, this image right here, this brother looked like he could have been one of Fat Albert's homeboys. You dig? Like, look at my man. Look at the texture of the hair. We're not just going to focus on the phenotype, because a lot of us, share phenotypes across the globe, across the spectrum. But we're going to focus on the hair, the distinctive key factor to let you know who these people were. Look at this brother right here. Look, this brother looked like he could have been one of the Wayans brothers. You see them buckshots, boy? Look at them kinks. Come on, man. That's a brother right there. You see the lips? You see the features? Tell me this ain't black people. And you're not going to just put anybody on your money. You understand? You get what I'm saying? Like, you're not putting Uncle Ben on your dollar. The people who control the money control who they put on the money. There's a reason why Queen Elizabeth's face is on money all across the planet. Don't get it twisted. The name Minoan comes from the mythical King Minos. It was given this name by British archaeologist Sir Arthur Evans, describing the Minoan civilization as the earliest of its kind. In fact, the historian Will Durant called the Minoans the first in the European chain. The Minoans built large palaces up to 4 stories high with elaborate plumbing systems decorated with frescoes. One of the palaces you can see right here, this is Knossos. And here you see Phaistos. The Minoans also had extensive trade among the Aegean and Mediterranean settlements, particularly those in the Near East. And you see they had routes and dealt with the old kingdom of Egypt, Cyprus, Canaan, Levantine, and Anatolia. Here we are in Santorini, Greece, and you see the ancient Minoan art. This was once the city of Acrotiri, which the city of Acrotiri had been destroyed by a Minoan eruption. The Minoans mostly wrote in a Linear A script and also what is known as Cretan hieroglyphics. It's mostly believed that the decline of this civilization, which began around 1450 BCE, was due to the eruptions of the volcano in Santorini, as well as the repeated invasions of the Mycenaean people from the mainland onto the island. So here you have these pre-Indo-European speaking people who were already in the land and had established relationships with the Middle East and Africa via Cyprus and Egypt. But yet European scholars are clueless to who these people really were. Egypt being in Africa, and Cyprus up until the 6th century BC was ruled by Africans who had settled in that region and controlled it until the Persian invasion. So we can clearly see that there was a connection with these people based on that alone. But also when comparing the architecture and the culture, with the similarities are undeniable. Whether in Egypt, Mesopotamia, Phoenicia, Harappa, Hatti, Crete, Etruria, and with all the several names and labels based on time period and technological advances, make no mistake, these were all descendants of the same core group of Africans who are known as the Twa, the Khoisan, and the Akan. who also became known as the Cretes and the Etruscans, the founding parents of Greek and Roman civilizations respectively. Most European scholars would theorize that ancient Greeks were Indo-European settlers who came from Central Europe. However, there is no archaeological evidence to support such claims, which is a theory that didn't even become accepted until the 19th century, as it was a theory based on Eurocentrism and whitewashing of Europe after centuries of civil war based on racial conflict throughout the continent, which we will most definitely be diving into later in this series. However, there is a ton of evidence to suggest that Greece was not only heavily influenced by Egyptians, but was in fact established as an original Egyptian satellite. Aeschylus's the 3rd century Greek tragedian's play, The Suppliants, which describes the arrival in Argos from Egypt of the Danaids, daughter of Danaus. Cadmus, who was the first Greek hero in Phoenician, is believed to have introduced the Phoenician alphabet to Greece. And even the Greek word hero, you hear the ancient Egyptian Heru. Herodotus also claims Eastern influence, and although 1st century AD Greco-Roman historian Plutarch attacked Herodotus' claim that Greeks were thought by Africans, he himself wrote about Isis and Osiris in the Greek Moralia, which translates as Greek morals. Isis and Osiris? So he was saying that they weren't taught by Africans 400 plus years after the Greek historian Herodotus said they were, but somehow this fool is referencing Egyptian deities in his book of morals and matters? I might have been born at night, but it damn sure wasn't last night. Classical Greek civilization and the alphabet came about in the 8th century BCE. Now, looking at the alphabet according to Wikipedia, the Greek alphabet has been used to write Greek language since the 9th or early 8th century BC. It's derived from the early and Phoenician alphabet. Y'all see that, right? Phoenician, check. Now let's see what Wikipedia says about the Phoenician alphabet. The Phoenician alphabet is an alphabet, more specifically an abjad. Now an abjad, for those who don't know, is an alphabet system of all consonants, no vowels represented. So this was known in modern times from the Canaanites and the Aramaic inscriptions found across the Mediterranean region. But let's scroll down and see what it says about its origins. Well, look at what we have here. Egyptian hieroglyphics. Egyptian hieroglyphics. You see that? Phoenician script, which are Proto-Sinaitic, itself derived from the Egyptian hieroglyphics or the ancient Medu-Neter. You dig? Alright then. Let's not play. It's right there. This is what they saying. So apparently, the Greek alphabet shares a direct lineage with the Egyptian hieroglyphics, which means the European scholars claim that Indo-Europeans who came into Central Europe migrated into Greece, although previously populated with a people who spoke a non-related language, and these same people who were already there shared a trade relationship as well as similar customs and spiritual expression with the same people of North Africa as well as the Middle East during the time where both areas were controlled by black people. That these Indo-Europeans then entered the land and established their own alphabet that was derived from Africans without the influence of these same Africans when it came to language and culture. And for further study of the African influence of Greek civilization, you can look into the Black Guyanese historian George G.M. Jackson and his book published in 1954, Stolen Legacy. You can also check out the works of British scholar Martin Bernal, who wrote the Black Athena trilogy, first published in 1987, 1991, and 2006 respectively. Understanding that Greek civilization was the birth of westernized white European culture and the father of their civilization, there's a great need to erase their origins as well as to claim their achievements and concepts as completely their own. Thus, the influence the Greek civilization had on the rest of Europe would then be credited to their forefathers, making ancient Greece Europe's most highly celebrated and advanced ancient civilization, only to be rivaled with the rise of the Roman Empire. The ancient city of Rome was established in 743 BCE and lasted until the mid-5th century AD. According to legend, It was founded by twins Romulus and Remus, who was abandoned and survived by being suckled by a wolf. It's also said in an older legend that Greek Romus, son of Odysseus and Circe, actually found Rome, with the name Romus being changed to Roman from Romulus and Remus, which then became known as twins. And this is where things get a little bit confusing. According to Plutarch, some say it was the Pelasgians who founded the city and named it Rome for its strength in war. The Pelasgians not actually being the name of a specific people, but referring to as the ancestors of the Greeks or any of the original inhabitants of Greece before the arrival of what we now know as the Greek. And of course, like just like the Harappan, just like the Hattic people, scientists don't know who these Pelasgians were. They just anybody who was in Greece before the people that we now know as the Greeks. However, right here we can clearly see, this is an image. These are the Pelasgian people right here. You can clearly see what they look like, the image that they created for themselves, how they look. You can see how they were also depicted. These are the Pelasgians. So basically, when you see the Pelasgians, just think the Cretans, think the Minoans, think Africans, think black people. You see it, family. There we go. Let's continue. While others claim survivors of Troy came to Italy, and a noblewoman named Roma suggested that they burn their ships and live there, and so they named the city after her. Most of these stories tell of a Greek origin, or at least the origin of the city founded by people coming from Greece. However, archaeological evidence shows that the area was occupied as far as 14,000 years ago. But yet in all, the Italic Latin people of Italy today, who are the direct descendants of the ancient Romans, did not come into Italy until 3,000 years ago. These Italic Latins are a branch of Indo-Europeans who originated from Russia as well, while settling and traveling amongst the Danube Valley, which brought them into Central Europe. So once again, just like how they separated the African with different labels like Hattic, Harappa, Pelasgians, these Indo-European Aryan Caucasians were being rebranded as Hittites, Greeks, Latins, all at the same damn time. But in all, they're the same damn people. Crafty little bastard, ain't he? I'll give him that. European scholars also claim that the people they called the Etruscans were already established in that region, and based on the archaeological evidence were in fact the true original founders of Rome, and the fact that the first two Roman emperors were actually Etruscan. Lucius Tarquinius from 619 to 579 BCE, Servius Tullius 578 to 535 BCE. The story is starting to sound real familiar. It's starting to become real repetitious. Going back to episode 1. Y'all see the pathological pattern here? So now we ask, who were these Etruscans and where did they originate from? And from their own depiction, as well as the Romans, and from their artwork, we can clearly tell this wasn't no white boy. Here we see the head of an Etruscan statue in ancient Anatolia, which we know was actually Hattie. Now remember, the Herodotus said that the Etruscans came from Hattie or Anatolia during a famine. So here we see the Etruscan head found, and this was in the year 200 BC. Here we see a 4th century depiction of an Etruscan with a Latin dancer. Now I'm not exactly sure what's going on in this picture. I see the brother got his shirt off and whatnot. But that's clearly a brother. You can look at the hair and look at the complexion. I don't know if you're just going to continue to ignore what's going on right here in front of us, but that's clearly a brother. This is from the 6th century right here. Once again, family, the hands of your ancestors carved and created mouthpieces that are still here thousands of years later to tell their story. Look at the depiction of ancient Europe in real time, showing proof that black people were the first cultivators of ancient Europe. There you see the ancient Roman pottery depicting these Latins following the Etruscans. You see the old man in the front with the beard. Look at that brother. Skin look like burnt brass, hair white as wool. Come on now, you see it. So who are they? And where did these people come from? For the most part, modern day Italians will tell you that the Etruscans are their ancient ancestors, even though there's substantial evidence that shows they were not in fact the same people, from phenotype to the difference in language. Well, once again, let's see what the ancient Greek historian said about the Etruscans. He stated that they came from Asia Minor around 1200 BCE as a result of famine. Now, remember what I said, how they were in the Indus Valley, which is southern Pakistan, northern India, that the region over there. Some of them traveled into Turkey, which was Hatti at the time, then became known as Anatolia and now Turkey. Some of them came over into Turkey, and they're saying that some of them same people that came from Turkey then found their way into Italy. So when I tell you how these people were migrating and coming from city to city and traveling, I'm not just telling you this. I'm giving you at least some type of evidence. So Herodotus is claiming that 1200 BCE, the Etruscans came from Asia Minor, which was Hatti, formerly the Hattic civilization, which is modern-day Turkey. And in 1200 BCE, that was approximately 1 century before Greece went into their Dark Age, which lasted for about 400 years. Also, 1200 BCE is the same time that the Hittite Empire fell. We know the Hittites were Indo-Europeans who usurped an African civilization that previously stood in modern-day Turkey, which is Asia Minor. We also know that a lot of the Africans that were previously there migrated further into Europe, entering Greece and Italy, where Africans had previously migrated thousands of years prior. Although he was probably not really all the way on when they actually arrived, talking about the Etruscans, he was probably right about the region a lot of the so-called Etruscans migrated from. Hellenistic scholar Dionysius of Halicarnassus quotes early historian Hellenicus, the contemporary of Herodotus, who objected to the Asia Minor origin theory. Instead, he claims Etruscans were Pelasgians from the Aegean. And Dionysius' own opinion on the Etruscans' origin is that they were homegrown residents of Italy, which in all honesty, they both were probably right, being as though we're not just talking about one group of people who made one migration, but in fact different groups of Africans who made several migrations starting as far back as 100,000 years ago. But if you pay attention, you'll catch them telling on themselves. As for the Romans and the great civilization they established, well, it seems that not only were the Etruscans already in that region, but their great civilization had already been established by the Etruscans, and it wasn't until 396 BCE, when the Romans sacked the city of Veii, that the Roman people actually became the dominant rulers. And it wouldn't be for another 62 years before the Etruscan conquest by the Romans will be complete with the destruction of the city of Volsceni. So once again, the story of Africans who traveled into Asia from the Indus Valley into the peninsula of Asia we today call Europe, creating advanced sister civilizations that simultaneously thrived and shared an interdependent relationship based on science and trade. They didn't just travel into Greece and Italy. Remember, they came into the Iberian Peninsula as well as the Isle of Great Britain. And no, the story does not stop here. Just as these Africans were able to seek refuge leaving the Indus Valley in the Hatti, or Hatti into Greece, or Greece into Italy, other parts of Europe were beginning to develop and flourish as well. And these same Africans would have found solace elsewhere in Europe. But we'll save that for the next episode of How the Earth Became Civilized. I am your brother, the pragmatic Che Blak. Until we meet again, peace and power, almighties.